There are a lot of viruses out there that can infect humans, but two things that can get really alarming is when a virus spreads quickly and when it causes serious harm. Zika virus has the potential to do both of these things, which is why it's gotten a lot of attention. Given this, it makes sense to understand a bit about Zika virus and the disease it causes. Zika virus is an arbovirus, meaning it's transmitted via certain arthropods, specifically mosquitoes, so it's a mosquito-borne virus. Mosquito-borne doesn't mean that the virus is born in the mosquito, though, but it's born with an E, which means carried or transported. Sometimes we call organisms like this vectors, where all they do is transport the virus. So with Zika virus, just like other mosquito-borne viruses like dengue fever, yellow fever, Japanese encephalitis, and West Nile virus, the mosquito acts as a vector that transmits the virus from one person to the next. These viruses are all in the genus Flavivirus. In order to mature her offspring, female mosquitoes need a blood meal, which they get from unsuspecting hosts. Mosquitoes find their blood meals using chemical compounds that we and other organisms give off, like carbon dioxide, ammonia, lactic acid, and octanol. So when a mosquito that also happens to be carrying the virus finds her meal and digs in, the virus infects the human host and starts to multiply or reproduce within the human. With most flaviviruses, though, the virus isn't able to replicate enough in the human host to actually be able to reinfect another mosquito, and so the human is considered a dead-end host. However, the Zika virus, along with yellow and dengue fever, is well enough adapted to human hosts such that it can multiply to a point where it can reinfect another unsuspecting mosquito, which can then go on to infect more people. This window lasts for the first week of infection, during which the Zika virus can be found in the blood. So if humans with the disease can transmit back to mosquitoes, then you can imagine that areas where there are a lot of mosquitoes would be set up for spreading the virus super quickly, right? Now the Zika virus is transmitted via mosquitoes in the Aedes genus. These bloodthirsty little guys can bite at night, but are mostly active during the daytime. Aedes mosquitoes are also the same ones that transmit chikungunya fever and dengue fever. When Aedes aegypti, or Aedes albopictus, both species of the Aedes mosquito, lands on your skin and sticks in its long nose, or proboscis, it pierces the epidermis, which is the topmost layer, composed almost entirely of keratinocytes. Keratinocytes basically serve to protect against foreign pathogens, and it's typically pretty good at that. That proboscis, though, keeps going into the dermis, since the epidermis just gets oxygen from the air and doesn't have its own blood supply, whereas the dermis does. And this is what our mosquito's after, right? The blood meal. Since the proboscis goes through both the epidermal and the dermal layers, the cells in those layers are susceptible to infection by the Zika virus. So in addition to keratinocytes, fibroblasts and dendritic cells have also been found to be permissive to Zika virus, meaning they have some sort of receptor or attachment site that basically says, "Here you go, man, come on in." Now we still don't know everything about the Zika virus infection, but we do know that when it enters the cell, it injects a single-stranded positive RNA strand. Positive means that this piece of RNA is a lot like our own mRNA. It's basically ready to rock and get translated into proteins. The virus's genome is translated by our own cellular machinery into more viruses. Eventually, those cells-turned virus-making factories die, which actually ends up releasing more viruses to infect more cells. As bleak as all that sounds, our immune system's actually pretty good at fighting off Zika virus, and only 1 in 5 get sick from infection, and often the others won't even notice that they've been infected. Common symptoms when patients have them are mild fever and skin rash, but some also experience muscle and joint pain, headaches, and conjunctivitis, or red eyes. The incubation period, or time from infection to symptoms, isn't known, but it's thought to be from a few days to a week. Treatment usually just involves treating the symptoms, things like getting plenty of rest, drinking fluids to prevent dehydration, and taking medicine like acetaminophen to help reduce pain and fever. Okay, so we've hit the spreads quickly part, which really matters most in places with a lot of mosquitoes. But what about the causes serious harm part? Well, although it causes mild symptoms in adults, there's more to the story. In October 2015, in areas of Brazil where Zika virus has been circulated quite a bit, public health officials noticed a significant increase in babies born with microcephaly, which is when a child is born with an abnormally small head and therefore abnormally small brain size. and this has the tendency to cause serious neurological and intellectual deficits, seizures, as well as vision or hearing problems. It was noticed that there was this huge increase in babies with microcephaly, up to a 20-fold increase, among Brazilian states with Zika virus outbreak. As of November 2015, the European Center for Disease Control has stated that it's plausible that the Zika virus is able to cause microcephaly in the developing fetus or newborn, as the Zika virus can be transmitted from mother to baby during pregnancy or around the time of birth. Although it's not really known yet how often this happens or how exactly the Zika virus is linked to microcephaly. In addition to being spread mostly by mosquito bites, and in some cases from mother to child, Zika virus has also been reported to spread through both blood transfusions and sexual contact. Currently, there's no vaccine for the Zika virus, so it's highly advised to take precautions against traveling to areas of outbreak, mostly limiting mosquito bites, so doing things like wearing bug spray all day or wearing long-sleeve shirts and pants, especially during the day when the Aedes mosquitoes are most active. If infected, it's especially important to avoid mosquitoes to avoid spreading Zika virus to others, especially in that first week of symptoms. The World Health Organization currently suggests pregnant women consult their doctor or travel clinic for guidance and recommendations.
The Zika virus was first discovered in the Zika forest in Uganda and is now suspected of being the cause of abnormally small heads in Brazilian babies and Guillain-Barré syndrome, a dangerous autoimmune dysfunction. The Aedes mosquito, a vector for dengue and chikungunya, is able to transmit the Zika virus, which was first isolated from a rhesus macaque monkey in 1947. It is known to cause symptoms like fever, rash, joint pain, or conjunctivitis, but the illness is usually mild, and 1 in 5 people infected with the virus will fall sick. Margaret Chan, the Director General of the World Health Organization, issued a statement saying that the Zika virus was
spreading explosively,
and
the level of alarm is extremely high.
Furthermore, she was quoted saying,
"A causal relationship between Zika virus infection and birth malformations and neurological syndromes has not yet been established." This is a very important point. But it is strongly suspected.
As such, there isn't much evidence pointing to babies having small heads, a condition called microcephaly, and the Zika virus. This hasn't stopped the media from pushing the possibility of an all-out epidemic despite lack of substantial evidence. Even though the virus has been around for some time now, appearing in the year 1969 in our own backyard. In fact, Malaysians are advised to take measures ranging from postponing travel to 24 countries in the Americas, protecting themselves against mosquito bites, and destroying Aedes mosquito breeding grounds. According to Professor Dr. Sazali Abu Bakar, the World Health Organization's Collaborating Center for Arbovirus Reference and Research Director, the size of an outbreak possibly amplified the otherwise rare occurrence of microcephaly. El Salvador has advised women to delay pregnancy until 2018, while Brazil has acted more drastically, with over 200,000 soldiers being sent to spread awareness of the Zika virus on February 13th, and Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff calling for war on the Zika-carrying mosquitoes and authorizing health officials to enter private properties by force if necessary, in an effort to control the spread of the virus. While the active response taken by the respective governments show that there is heightened awareness of the previously unheard of virus, the numbers do not seem to warrant such action. Global Post ran an article titled the sketchy numbers behind Brazil's Zika crisis, citing a report by the journal Nature, which concluded that the apparent spike in babies with small heads is probably due to active search and overdiagnosis. It turns out that out of the 4,000 cases of suspected microcephaly, Brazil has confirmed 270 actual cases since October 2015. A bulletin from Brazil's health ministry states that only 6 of the country's reported cases of microcephaly are related to the Zika virus. Furthermore, 462 of the suspected microcephaly cases have been discarded, so cases are being discarded at almost twice the rate they're being confirmed. The article closes with this sentence: "There is not enough accurate data yet to show that there is something the global public, or specifically expecting mothers in Latin America, should be panicking about." The World Health Organization has called the situation a global health emergency. This will be the 4th time the World Health Organization declared such an emergency, with the previous 3 times being the outbreak of swine flu or H1N1 in 2009, the apparent resurgence of polio in 2014, and Ebola later the same year. As there is no known cure, pharmaceutical companies are already working on a vaccine to the Zika virus, whether or not it spreads out of control. A sexually transmitted case has been reported in the US and is yet to be proven. Brazil has allowed this year's Rio Olympics to go on despite the risks. Already, speculations about genetically modified mosquitoes created by British company Ocytec, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, spreading the Zika virus, and the Tdap vaccine causing microcephaly instead of the virus have surfaced, the former originating from a Reddit post, while the latter from a blog. Although both theories present compelling evidence, they do not seem to hold much water, for the moment at least. The conspiratorial side of the argument also raises the question of the ownership of the Zika virus, with what appears to be a patent of the Zika virus from ATCC, a company that touted itself as the premier global biological materials resource and standards organization. The depositor of the virus, it seems, is the Rockefeller Foundation. With so much hype surrounding the Zika virus, the recent swine flu cases in Russia barely get any media coverage. If we ever learn anything after all the buzz over the Zika virus has died down, it has to be the fact that the media would go out of their way to make a big fuss over something so small that it has to be viewed under an electron microscope. Augustine Tan, The Merdeka Report. This video is licensed under Creative Commons. You are allowed to download and distribute this video for commercial or non-commercial purposes.
Merdeka! Merdeka! Merdeka!